You learned that you're confident.
Not moving. I look at confidence as a rod straight from my head to my toes, which stems from insecurity. I didn't want to be the class clown. I didn't want to be the one that got made fun of. It is a superpower because when you manipulate your thoughts, there has to be a degree of trust that you are manipulating in the right direction.
And everything I do has an effect on my self-esteem.
You need confidence to do scary things. And I did a scary thing.
All right, Ty.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And also letting me use your space.
Yes, of course. Happy
Appreciate
to do
that a lot.
Yeah.
So what makes you come alive?
What makes me come alive? Having a goal and pursuing it. I think that's when I feel the most alive. And that's when I would describe myself as coming alive. When I have something that I want to accomplish that's larger than myself and I'm actively pursuing it. That is when I feel alive.
What do you think that is right now?
That's a great question, and I don't have full clarity right now at this time on exactly what my North Star is.
Yeah.
But I am finding aliveness in the pursuit of figuring out my North Star. So I think feeling alive just comes down to progressing and moving forward, which is what I'm doing. I may not be progressing towards my North Star yet, but at least I'm making progress to determine what the North Star is. So by proxy, I am moving forward. And that's when I feel alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really think that success is something that you have to define for yourself. And my definition of success is progress. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, something I realized was that if success equals progress, then that means failure is also success. Because failure equals feedback, feedback equals success. And then, or no, it was feedback equals progress, and then progress equals success. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just think that that's like a good mental reframe. Mm-hmm. And like, now, because I define success that way, like I don't like get pissed off when things don't really go in my way. And I just remind myself, like, if I'm making progress, then I'm succeeding. Mm-hmm.
I fully agree with that. That's a great mentality that you've developed. And I think it's super important because life is always going to be full of ups and downs. And the people that thrive and succeed in this world are the ones that can look at and frame the failures as positives, as you were saying, right? There's always good to come out of a bad experience. And I'm sure you've had some bad experiences in your life. I've had my fair share. And it's just about framing it and looking and how you want to look at it. And the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, I've been reading his book, and a lot of what he expresses in that book is around the foundational principle of framing your mindset towards something. Essentially, if you don't let it upset you, it won't upset you. No matter how upsetting it could be, if you just are objective and don't allow it to get under your skin, it won't. I know that sounds like very utopian, but you can work towards that. You can manipulate your feelings, and you can dictate how you feel towards something. And if you encounter a failure in your life, it is up to nobody else other than yourself to frame it in a way that leads to progress, as you were saying. There's always good to come out of a negative situation, no matter how negative it is.
Exactly. It's like that quote that is, your reality isn't what is true, it's what you perceive to be true.
Yeah.
And your perception completely shapes your reality. Like, if you perceive something that's bad as a good thing, then it's not really like a bad thing anymore, if that makes sense, just because you chose to see it in a certain way. So how has like your perspective evolved over the past 10 years? Like 10 years ago, how is your perspective on life different than how it is now?
I think responsibility is a word that comes to mind when describing the difference 10 years can do to me. I think that I have grown into a deal of responsibility that I'm happy to handle. And I think that's kind of the differentiating factor with my mentality now versus in my youth. And I think it kind of was exacerbated this year. I turned 25 this year. You know, studies show that your brain is fully developed at 25. And I always thought that was like an arbitrary number. But in my specific case scenario, I actually do feel like I kind of came to full being at 25.
Yeah.
And that has allowed me to bear a certain degree of responsibility that I couldn't before. And I think that's kind of the differentiating factor between my mindset now versus prior. As a kid, I never felt a true burden of responsibility. I always conducted myself in a respectable manner. At least I try to. Yeah. But now I feel a duty to do so for various reasons, but mainly pertaining to like my immediate family and such.
Yeah. What do you think was like the main catalyst for that big mindset shift?
I think a culmination of my life experiences.
Yeah.
There was no one singular event that catalyzed my plunge into adulthood.
Yeah.
But it was a culmination of all my prior experiences. I'd like to think I have a very rich life experience, and all of that coupled with a little bit of time, a little bit of solitude,
yeah,
and a little bit of self-reflection has led me to where I am today. So yeah, not one single event, just a culmination of time and all of everything I just mentioned has led me to where I am today.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you're speaking about solitude. It's crazy what that can do for you, even just like a little bit of solitude. I'm pretty sure we talked about this on our podcast before, but I just want to bring it up again because like it's such an important thing. And spending time just with yourself, even if it's just an hour a day or like 30 minutes a day with no phone, can completely change your life. And like earlier today, I told you I was like about to get the ferry and then it got cut off. I think one car in front of me. So if I came a minute earlier, I would have got it. Like I was pissed off, but then tying into what we were talking about before, like I chose just to perceive that as a good thing.
Yes.
So I took a walk around the ferry terminal for a couple hours, and during that walk, I got so many good ideas, and like my mood just got so much better because I spent time by myself.
Yes.
And like away from technology.
And you had time to think and process your thoughts and really analyze what you were doing that day. You were essentially present. And I believe you because the way that you addressed that when we first met was in a positive light, you know? Like you could have came in here all grumpy that you missed the ferry or whatever, but you came in here with a very positive mindset because of all the reasons you just mentioned. You had time for clarity, you had time for alone time, and you had solitude. And I think, you know, I've talked to a lot of people. I believe that people tend to be afraid of solitude, and they tend to be afraid of being lonely, because it's my assumption that a lot of people aren't comfortable with themselves, and they're scared of their own thoughts, and they do everything in their power to distract them from their own thoughts, and that's really dangerous, I think, because you have yourself, right? When you boil it down, what you have in this life is yourself, right? You are you.
It's true.
And you spend the most time with yourself. And if you don't love yourself or like yourself or trust yourself, it is so difficult to maneuver this world, right? It's like being glued to someone that you can't stand. How you know, just imagine how terrible that would be. Yeah. So it would behoove you to work on rectifying your relationship with that shadow person, aka your inner self. I've done a lot of that, I think. I know I've done a lot of internal work. I still have like tremendous more amounts to do. I'm nowhere near perfect. But I am striving for perfection. I won't get there, but that's fine. The pursuit of perfection, again, what I was saying before, is what makes me feel alive. because I'm making progress.
Yeah. Like imperfection is more perfect than perfection.
Sure. Well, yeah. Yeah. You could put it that way. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what kind of stuff have you learned about yourself doing that kind of work?
I've learned that I am confident.
Yeah.
I do respect myself. I've learned that I am competent.
Yeah.
I've learned that I trust myself. I've learned that for the most part, I can rely on myself to do the things that I say I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I don't do everything that I say I'm going to do, but that is where the work in progress comes into play.
Yeah, wait, is it okay if I cut you off? Sorry. Like, what you said at first was just, like, super interesting to me. You learned that you're confident. And I've never heard anyone talk about it like that. Like, most people talk about confidence as something that you have to develop. So could you go, like, a bit deeper into that?
Huh. Well, I do believe that you have to develop it.
Yeah.
I do. And I do believe that there is a learning process. There is an awakening process to the fact that you are confident.
Yeah.
You can develop confidence but be unaware of it. And I think, that might be the case for some people. Mm-hmm. Some people haven't even developed confidence. There are different stages to it. So you develop the skill, and then you become cognizant of your skill, which allows you to utilize it in your everyday life. I think they can be segregated a little bit into two different categories. So I've been developing my confidence for as long as I can remember, which stems from insecurity. Like, I didn't want to be the last man picked. I didn't want to be the class clown. I didn't want to be the one that got made fun of. So I've been trying to develop the characteristics that disallowed that negative behavior. And I, from a young age, narrowed in on confidence being my ticket out of the things I didn't want.
Yeah.
So I've been developing it for a long time. But I think as I've gotten older, past 21, 22, I started to be cognizant of the fact that, okay, I have been putting a lot of work into my confidence. Let me try to utilize it. Let me actually be cognizant of it and wear it on my sleeve. I wear confidence on my sleeve because I'm aware of it and I'm cognizant of it. So there's two parts.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. And like, how have you gone about wearing it on your sleeve and just like using the confidence that you had stored up?
I think it's a lot of it is in the way that I conduct myself.
Yeah.
I think that's where confidence is. I look at confidence as like a rod not moving. I look at confidence as a rod kind of straight from my head to my toes going down, and it emanates outwards into everything that I do. And at the base of my confidence rod is the way that I conduct myself, the way that I present myself, my mannerisms, my eye contact, my body language, all of that. And that is how I utilize my confidence.
Yeah.
And when I bring to the table a degree of confident posture, it leaks into everything that I do.
Yeah.
And that's how I utilize and visualize my confidence. It radiates from within into every aspect of my life. I do everything with a degree of confidence. And if I am embarking on something that I'm not confident in, I still can harness that inner radiation of confidence to eventually garner confidence in what I wasn't confident in initially.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what Huberman says. Like, he says a problem something like this, like a problem in the mind can't be solved in the mind, like it has to be solved in the body. Like I know he talks a lot about doing things like breath work and meditation, things with your body to heal stuff in your mind, like anxiety. So I guess that's kind of what you were doing. Like, you were controlling your mind with your body, like trying to act confident and then becoming it.
Yeah, to a certain degree, absolutely. Yeah, there's this saying that goes around like faking confidence is literally just confidence, which I do kind of agree with to a certain extent. Um, there's not a whole big difference between acting confident and actually being confident.
Yeah.
They're one and the same to a certain degree. There is a category in which you can absolutely fake being confident, but that's very perceivable to majority of people.
Yeah.
But I think to the point that you're making, what is the point that you're making actually?
Oh, I know. I was just saying that. I wasn't really making any point, but I really do like
Yeah.
what you were just saying. And I heard something a couple days ago that was like, you can't really fake courage. Like you can't really pretend to be courageous. You either are or you're not. And I think same goes with confidence. Like if you do something that requires confidence that you like supposedly don't have. Like for example, let's say I'm like super afraid of approaching girls and I approach a girl. Like I was technically faking confidence.
But that is confidence.
Yeah, but it is confidence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I agree.
And like something that I've learned in the past year that has really changed my life is just the fact that our identity isn't something that's set in stone. And it's something that we can always change if we're constantly aware of it. Like, I don't know if you've read the book Psycho-Cybernetics.
I have not.
Okay, I have a copy with me. I'm just rereading it because it's so good.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically the main point in the book is the fact that our self-image, the way that we see ourselves, controls our life. And like everything that we do is meant to be consistent with the self-image that we have. But the thing is, a lot of our self-images are actually hurting us and we don't even know about it. Like, a good example would be a lot of people, they keep failing in things like business, sports, or like whatever they're trying to do. Not because they're actually bad at those things. It's because part of their identity is the fact that they don't think they're worthy of success. And then that manifests itself into all areas of their life. So it's just like a really interesting concept. The fact that like literally just the way you think about yourself controls your life, and just making the decision to change it will like completely change your life.
Absolutely. And what you're essentially describing is like autonomy. Like, do you have autonomy over your mindset? And I can't speak for everybody in this world, but I think that I do have autonomy over my mindset, and I can manipulate my thought processes in accordance with how I want to live my life. And it is a superpower, and I do think it stems from confidence and trusting yourself. Because when you manipulate your thoughts, there has to be a degree of trust that you are manipulating in the right direction. If you have in the past failed yourself many times over, and you want to adorn a new mindset, it can be difficult to trust that new mindset. This all stems from having confidence and trust in your inner self. It's a very difficult thing, and the way to garner trust within oneself is by, as Hermosi states, is stacking proof that you are who you say you are, and being and showing up for yourself consistently when you say you're going to show up for yourself, and not breaking promises to yourself, and tackling things that are difficult. Doing hard things garners confidence, and you can do and manipulate like hard things in your daily life. Cold exposure, cold plunges, right? It's a hard thing. People do it. There's an aspect of why people do it, and that is because of the confidence factor, right? If I can step into freezing cold water for 5 minutes every single day, I can ask my boss for a raise. I can talk to that girl. I can eat healthy, right? Because you already done a hard thing.
Yeah.
It's you're training that difficult muscle, and that's how you garner confidence. So just do hard things, do uncomfortable things multiple times over, and the more you succeed at those hard things, the more confident you will become. You're just training, right? You're training the muscle, the confidence muscle.
My life changed I when I started to think of my self-esteem as something that's constantly fluctuating, and everything I do has an effect on my self-esteem. Like if I drink, oh no, 2 liters of water today, then my self-esteem's gonna rise. Maybe not by much, but it'll rise a little bit. But if I eat a bunch of junk food today, the same thing will happen, but it'll have the opposite effect. Like my self-esteem is going to go down a little bit. And the thing is, like it might not feel like much in the moment, but this kind of stuff really adds up. And if you consistently do small things that lower your self-esteem, then in like a month or two, you're going to feel a big difference and your confidence is going to go down in like pretty much all other areas of your life.
You nailed it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like even if you do small things, like when you go to the grocery store, leaving the shopping cart at your car and not putting it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Or, oh no, if I just like left this cup of water here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer in the concept of the way that you do anything is the way that you do everything. You might have heard of that.
Yeah, like how you do anything is how you do everything.
Exactly. So as you were mentioning, if you leave the shopping cart unattended in the parking lot for somebody else to clean up, that stains your perception of yourself, and you are more likely to commit a similar act of disrespect to a varying degree. You're conditioning yourself. You condition yourself with the activities that you engage in on a daily basis. And luckily, I've learned it from a young age. You seem to have learned it from a young age that it's a conditioning effect, right? Stack a lot of positive things, and you will continue to stack positive things. Stack a lot of negative things, and you will continue to stack negative things. We are conditioners. Like we love routine habits. We are moldable as humans, right? It's
for sure.
We are moldable as humans, and mold yourself in the direction that you want to go in. It's very simple in concept and in practice, because you can boil it down to the nuance. Put your shopping cart away. Return the glass to where you found it.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And then when the harder tasks come that require more effort, you are already preconditioned to do the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think as much as I agree with the Hormozy quote, like it's definitely true, but I don't think it's completely true. I think confidence actually is a mix between competence and self-esteem. And I feel like you can be extremely competent at something, but not be confident because you don't have the self-esteem portion down. And I think a good example of that would be somebody with like a body dysmorphia. They might be super jacked, like super competent at the gym, but because they don't have the self-esteem, they're not confident.
Interesting. How would you describe self-esteem?
Good question. I think, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, I think your reputation with yourself and also just like your self-image. And I think there's parts of everyone's self-image that are limiting them, like limiting beliefs, that we picked up unconditionally in our childhood. They just make it harder to develop that self-esteem and hold us back in certain areas of life. So it's just really important, like, to be aware of that kind of stuff.
I agree. I just want to push back on the non-acceptance of the Hormozy quote, because I do think that in order to, the way that you describe self-esteem, like trust in oneself, and like you have to stack layers of progress. Like I think that's kind of the foundation of garnering inner confidence and increasing your self-esteem is proving to yourself that you can do things consistently. I think that, yeah, that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, well,
Which
I just mean like if you have like some childhood trauma,
yes.
or like I don't know, you were bullied as a kid, or something happened in your childhood that lowered your self-esteem. It's like doing the work and trusting yourself is only going to do so much. Like you're you're going to have a hole inside of you until you do the inner work to like deal with that trauma and that stuff that happened in the
Okay.
past.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. So something I really want to dive into is you quitting your job on January 2nd. Yeah, how did that feel?
Uh, it felt very righteous of me. It felt very in line with me. It felt very biting the bullet, eating the frog
Yeah,
type thing. It was a long time coming for me. So I worked at the Vancouver Police Department doing content creation for them.
yeah,
And you've likely seen some of my work
for sure.
on TikTok or Instagram. I was having a great time for about a year. And there came a day when things turned, management changed, and my relationship with the atmosphere that I was working in was deteriorating. And I noticed that. And, there was a seed that was planted in my mind that I wanted to quit. And that seed grew and grew for about a year. And after that seed had been done growing, the stars aligned. I alerted the people that I needed to alert that I was in contention with leaving. I gave them some opportunity to, mitigate the situation / make things good, which they happily obliged, but it just wasn't enough for me, and my heart was out of the situation as a whole. So about 2 weeks later from that conversation, I took the leap, and I quit. Respectfully, no hard feelings on anybody's end. I think everybody was understanding of the situation that I was in. It just wasn't ideal for me as a person or creative. It wasn't a proper career path for me. And I was a square trying to fit into a circular hole. It just wasn't working at the time. I made the jump January 2nd, kind of leveraged the whole New Year thing as a...
Took it to an extreme.
Yeah, as a catalyst. And luckily, I had a secondary income stream of a freelance editor. I'm a freelance editor, so I had a client on the side that was actually subsidizing my income. And it was just on par with my Vancouver Police income. So that gave me the confidence to actually make the leap. I didn't just leave with $0 of income coming in.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah, it took a lot of courage, and it took a lot of head strength and confidence in myself to actually make that leap. I think if I was any less confident or qualified, I would have stayed in that unideal situation for longer than I would have liked. And I think that's actually, a lot of people get stuck in a situation they don't love or like because they don't have the confidence to make the leap. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary as heck. It's honestly scary. But that's where confidence comes into play. Like, you need confidence to do scary things. And I did a scary thing. And now I'm here.
Yeah. And it's like you got to do those scary things if you want the life that you love, basically. Yeah. And sure, you might have liked your job, but you didn't love it. And I think like situations like that can be very dangerous, because if we're in a situation that like we don't completely like, but it's comfortable for us, like we don't really feel a big motivation to get out of it, then we might stay stuck there for years or even our whole life if we don't make the uncomfortable decision to like leave or just do something scary that kind of stresses us out and puts us into, I guess, more of a do or die situation.
I agree. Yeah, confidence is very important and foundational to every aspect of your life. And that's the number one thing I want to avoid is not being in a situation that I deeply have a hatred for. It won't happen for me. It just won't, because my self-respect is I think too high to allow myself to get into a position that is drastically unpleasant. And I admire myself for that personally. Like I don't allow bullshit into my life too often. And if it's in there, like get it out immediately. And it's a skill. It's a skill to remove BS from your life, right? And it's something that I'm actively working on. I've gotten better at doing it. Removing BS from your life is a dirty process, going along with the pun. But there are cleaner ways to do it. And I think that's what kind of growing up teaches you, is how to remove BS from your life in a respectable and cleanly manner that doesn't burn bridges. It's a very immature mentality to not like something and then burn that bridge.
Yeah.
It's a very immature mentality. And I certainly have had my fair share of burnt bridges. And now I'm getting to the age where I value bridges because they can be lifelines, and they can be routes of supplies. They can be routes of resources. They can be aid when I do need them. So why burn them if I don't have to?
What do you think's the next thing that you have to let go of?
I'm really battling with this concept of doing things that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I need to let go of that youthful mindset.
Okay.
When you're in your childhood, you can safely, I would say, get away with not doing the things that you don't want to do, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You can push off responsibilities, you can ignore, certain things that you have to get done with relatively little to no cost. Given your circumstances, it depends, but for the most part, in your childhood, there's a lot of leeway with responsibility and not doing it. But as you cross the threshold into adulthood, responsibility becomes that much more heavy, and there's a weight to the responsibility that you bear. And that process of pushing your responsibilities to the side doesn't really work in adulthood. That's how you get to a bad place as an adult. So that's something that I am actively working on, is doing things that I don't want to do. Because as a kid, I was a huge proponent of like, if I don't want to do it, I'm not freaking doing it. You can't make me. Which is not the best mindset, but that was okay back then. It's not okay anymore. So that's something that I want to relinquish, is my headstrongness towards that.
Totally. So what do you think is like the biggest thing you've been avoiding?
The biggest thing I've been avoiding. That's a hard question.
Or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's something that you're avoiding, but you don't know you're avoiding it.
That's hard because I wouldn't know if I'm avoiding it.
Yeah.
You're asking me what I don't know if I'm avoiding.
Or no, I mean like maybe like the biggest thing you're avoiding is like something that you don't know. Because I find that happens with me a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, or it's not that I don't know it. It's like a lot of the time I'm avoiding something that I don't want to admit that I'm avoiding, and I feel like everybody has that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, some might be big,
agree.
Some might be small.
I absolutely agree. I am not for certain what I'm avoiding. And I think there's a degree of deep work that needs to be done in order to flush that out. And I would extrapolate that to, like, I think majority of people, as you were mentioning, are avoiding something.
Yeah.
And I think, like, that's kind of, like, almost to a degree actualization. Like, you become self-actualized when you learn to confront all of the dragons and demons in your life. I am not perfect. There are still things that I am avoiding, not confronting. And it's murky down there. It's foggy, and I'm not exactly sure like what it is specifically that I am avoiding. But that's where the growth is, and that's what self-growth essentially is. That's what deep work means. And I am ever chipping away at the fog of my avoidance. And yeah, I would encourage everybody to do the deep work. It's the hard work. It's the stuff that you're avoiding. There's a reason that you're avoiding it, but you know, what you're searching for lies in the work that you aren't doing.
Yeah. What does like that kind of deep work look like? Like just sitting alone, journaling, or
It can take many, many, many forms, and it differs per person. For me, I find that I accomplish a lot of deep work at the gym.
yeah.
It's a very meditative process for me. When I want to engage in deep work at the gym, I will put on almost transient music to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Either like no lyric house music or classical music or something to just facilitate the flow of my thoughts. And I will just exercise my muscles. And what that does is it gives me something to physically do that I don't have to actively think about. I have working out on autopilot for the most part, so I don't have to actually think about working out. I just do it. And what that does is it occupies my body with something to do, slightly occupies my brain with something to do, while also putting me in a state that facilitates thought. And, it's all positive processes that go on at the gym for me. I'm getting endorphin rush, I'm moving my body, I'm moving my feet, I'm moving my muscles, which is moving my brain forward. So that's where I do a lot of my deep work. And I've done a lot of deep work in the sauna as well.
I'd imagine.
I've had access to a couple different saunas in my adult life, and the saunas are perfect for deep work because the heat occupies your brain to a certain degree. And the fact that you can't have phones in the sauna allows your mind to just be free of distraction. And it's a beautiful thing. I've done a lot of deep thinking in the sauna, and I will continue to do so. There was a period for about a year where I lost access to a sauna.
Oh, yeah.
And I genuinely felt like a hit to my deep work process. And like I felt a hit to my deep work capacity. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like I'm losing out on a healing mechanism of mine. And luckily, I've gotten back my healing mechanism, and I feel great about it. But that's where deep work it lies, healing mechanisms. Whatever it is for you, I don't know what it is for you, you got to figure it out, right? It could be a plethora of things, writing, journaling, reading, sculpting, so many different things. It's just for me, working out is that big lever mover for me.
Yeah, and I was just thinking while you're saying that, I think podcasting could be one of them for me. Like, I've started to find, especially while doing these in-person podcasts, they've just become a super meditative experience. Like, I'm just in flow state the entire time. And even though, like, I'm present, I'm thinking about what you say, I don't know how to describe it. I'm still like having realizations and getting deep thoughts while I'm doing it. Which is something that's super interesting. And then I walk away from the podcast like not only learning a lot about you or whoever I'm having on, but like learning new things about myself.
Absolutely. That's beautiful, dude. It's a beautiful thing. And it seems like you're pursuing your passion, and it's amazing that you're cognizant of this situation that you're putting yourself in. And pursue that, bro, at all costs, right? Because you feel this is what makes you feel alive in the pursuit of whatever it is that you're doing. And that's the most that you can ask for out of life, I would say. Like being able to pursue your North Star. That is what being alive is all about, making progress. And you have found that, and it's a beautiful thing. I love podcasting as well, and I will certainly include podcasting into my North Star orientation. For all the reasons that you said, absolutely. It's a fantastic medium for conversation. I learn a lot about you. I get to flex my my brain muscles, get to flex my memory muscles, get to flex my cognition, my articulation, all of it, right? It's a beautiful thing, and there is a real pressure to perform because of the cameras, and that you don't get anywhere else, right? It's a very unique experience to be able to speak in a recorded fashion, because everything that you say is permanent, which
Exactly.
is different. That's different
Yeah.
than real life, because what you say in off the camera is not permanent.
Yeah.
So this is it flexes a different skill set, and it definitely transverses into private life as well, for sure. Like my capacity to speak to someone in real life is certainly more dialed in because I've had to do it when the stakes are higher, right?
100%. Yeah. You've got it for sure. And I think podcasting is just one of the best types of content, and I think it will be for a while. Because like I think we were talking about this before we started recording. Even though short form content is getting more popular, when someone consumes your short form content, they don't really get too much of a glimpse into who you are. They know your content and what you talk about, but they don't really know you. And I think that's what people truly want to know about. So I think like as short form content continues to take over, people are also gonna start consuming more podcasts just because they get to know the creators they like on such a deeper level.
Absolutely.
And also not to mention AI. Like this is the most authentic form of communication, and it's gonna be pretty hard for AI to make a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you just said. Absolutely. There's certainly a shift towards more authentic, long-form-esque content, which I find beautiful because this is kind of where I feel at home. Yeah, as you were saying, short-form content it can be super surface level. It is like surface level. That's the whole premise of it, essentially. Is
Yeah.
you're scrolling through surface level stuff of an amalgamation of like tons of different creators. Whereas on YouTube or long-form stuff, you kind of narrow your focus onto a singular person. And there's so much more depth to when somebody focuses their singular attention onto you. You can get so much more rich and contentful with your statements and your messaging and all of that. It's a beautiful thing, and I love it. I just put out a video recently on the difference between YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah.
And I made the analogy that Instagram is the ocean, and YouTube is the land. YouTube is stable, YouTube is consistent, YouTube is safe, and YouTube is reliable. Instagram is the water. It's the ocean. It's up and down, wavy, dangerous at times. And if you stay out there too long, you get sick or you drown. And I wholeheartedly believe in that analogy, actually. Humans were meant for land, right? Humans were meant to be on land. But that doesn't mean we can't go out into the water and enjoy it for what it is, right? I plan on living my life on YouTube, but at times going out into the water and surfing and enjoying it and hanging out with friends in the water, all of that stuff. But ultimately, I can't stay there 24/7. I have to come back to land, YouTube, because that's where home is going to be for me and for you as well. So, yeah, it's changing times here. People are starting to realize the dangers of short form content, because it can be dangerous, especially as a creator. It's very dangerous because the highs and the lows are so high and so low, and you can't live your life like that. You thrive in consistency and stability. Everybody does. Nobody can handle highs and lows like for that long. And YouTube is kind of free of that. It's more consistent and stable and predictable. So that's why I am excited for this long form, slower paced, authentic stuff to take hold on the internet.
What do you think authenticity means to you?
Removing the filter from what is inside your mind to what is said from your mouth. I think that's authenticity. And I certainly try to practice that every single day, because I think authenticity and being genuine is one of the most important attributes that a person can carry with themselves. And it is the most noticeable and it is the most respected quality of a person. When somebody's genuine with you, you can smell it. You can see it. You can feel it.
Yeah.
And you can feel it on the other end of that. When somebody's lying to you, when somebody's being deceiving and conniving, you can feel it. And what that means is, what being conniving and disingenuine means is, there is a very strong filter between what that person is thinking and what that person is saying. And authenticity is the opposite of that. What that person is thinking is exactly the same as what is coming out of his or her mouth. That's essentially being authentic. It's very simple when you think of it that way. And I have tried to wean off of my filter as best as I can. Like, the way that I'm presenting to you right now is the exact same that I would present to my other friend that I've known for 10 years. And it's the exact same that I would present to my mom. Like, it's all me. It's just me. I try not to put on different faces for different people. And I think that's reflected in my content too. The way that I speak on camera to my audience is exactly the same as I would speak to you in person, because there's no filter, right? It's just all stemming from the same place. And I think that's what authenticity is.
So something you were talking about in one of your recent videos that I found pretty interesting was the fact that, like, your mind is in work mode for a lot of the day. And you're trying to learn to just do a better job at turning it off. Could you go a bit deeper on that?
Yeah. There's many reasons for that. One of the main reasons is the fact that this is my office. I live in my office. And it's a skill. It's an acquired skill to be able to segment your office space from your personal space when it is the same area. And this is something that I'm getting more and more used to and accustomed to. But, as being an entrepreneur or being a freelancer, or whatever that case may be, and always having access to my desk, there's always this nagging thing in the back of my mind where it's like, I could be working. No matter what time of day it is, if it's 11 o'clock at night or if it's 9 a.m., I could be working. And that's just a large battle that I am dealing with. I'm working towards overcoming it because I do think it's something that does need to be overcome. It's just the concept of mentally separating work mode from rest mode. And, there's many gurus out there who will say, like, just all work, no rest. And
yeah,
I don't believe that. I do believe that there needs to be ample time for rest. And, of late, it's just been very tedious to be able to turn off my work mode and go into rest mode. Whereas in my 9 to 5, I would go into the office from a set time to a set time. I would leave the office and my work mode would absolutely turn off. And it would give me, ample time to breathe. And that's the convenient thing about 9 to 5s for the most part. Not majority, but there is a lot of 9 to 5s out there where you don't have to carry the weight of your job back home.
Yeah.
And people value that. People tremendously value that. And that's something that you forego when you dive into entrepreneurship. There is no off switch. And I'm not asking for there to be an off switch. I just need to get better at compartmentalizing that relationship in my mind so that I can stay sane for the longest amount of time.
Yeah, like, play for the long term instead of the short term.
Yeah, I don't want to overwork myself, but I also at the same time want to get a lot of work done. It's a balance. You're fighting burnout and you're fighting progress. And I'm not where I need to be yet, but that's what growth is. And I just started, so I have some leniency towards myself.
Yeah, and I feel like as entrepreneurs, we get addicted to feeling productive even when we're not actually productive. Like doing things like turning our computer on to do some work, but not really fully being in work mode, just kind of like having it on to say that we're doing work. So I think it's great. It's great to do kind of like what you were just saying. Really be clear on like when you're in work mode and when you're not in work mode, because then the times, like the times that you're actually in work mode, you're going to be giving 100% instead of like 50% and 40%.
I agree.
When when you're always in this like kind of work, kind of rest mode.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And that's something that I am battling with. It's, being able to show up fully for my responsibilities, and then being able to show up fully for my rest. It's a balance, and it's hard. And currently, it seems like I'm giving 50% all across the board because I'm kind of stuck in this limbo period of figuring out how to compartmentalize, and that's all right. That's a sacrifice that I have to make. I am only giving 50% to each department because that's where I'm at right now. But the goal is 100% here, off. 100% here, off. That's the goal.
Yeah, how do you plan on making it so you're giving 100% to each area of your life?
Better organization, better being on top of schedules, organization, deadlines, and being orderly in my calendar, right? That's how I believe it's going to be achieved. And it's difficult. It's difficult. Being organized is very difficult. Are you familiar with the concept of entropy?
I've heard of it.
Entropy basically dictates that everything in this world leans towards disorder. So,
Yeah.
if you never touch this table, it will accrue dust and get dirty, no matter what. Like it's disorder descends on everything. If you don't do the dishes in your sink, they will pile up and become disorderly, right? If you just leave things alone, they become disordered. And that's kind of why it's difficult to organize your life, because if you don't do anything, things pile onto you and they clutter your mind. So being organized is a constant cleaning process, and it's a constant organizing process. It never, ever, ever stops. Just like you can't ever, ever stop taking care of your health, because your health will deteriorate.
It's
right?
like an infinite game.
It's an infinite game, and that's why it's so difficult, and that's why it's very easy to get out of control, right? It's very, very easy to lose organization and a grasp on your life because everything in your life tends to lean towards disorder, right? So you're constantly battling the world, and it's a battle. That's what it is. It's difficult. You're going to war every single day with the world and your surroundings, because everything is trying to harm you. Everything is trying to kill you. Everything is trying to disorder your life. And you need to be a strong person in order to combat all of the externalities of life. Yeah.
And I think the way that you become strong is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like changing your perception. Choosing to perceive like the world having a state of entropy, like things always going to disorder, perceiving that as a good thing and trying to find the good in it. Because that's all you can really do. Just mentally reframe it to your benefit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Entropy is very strong. It's a very strong idea that I keep in my mind, because it's a really strong reframe ideology, actually.
Yeah.
Because I do understand the concept of entropy. And when things go wrong in my life, I just accredit it to, okay, well, that's supposed to happen. Everything is supposed to lean towards disorganization and chaos, right? That is commonplace, and it is my duty to clean up the mess, essentially, right? So I don't get surprised when bad things happen in my life. They're supposed to happen, just like they happen to everything. Everything bad happens to everything. That's the state of this world, is decay, essentially. And we have the capacity to fight against that decay, you and I. Like, we can actually succeed and thrive against that decay and chaos. And that's the beauty of life, right? We have the ability to make progress against the impending doom of the world. And it's a beautiful thing, because not many creatures in this world have the capacity to fight against entropy. But we were gifted the opportunity to move forward against the chaos of this world. Therefore, it's our duty. I think it's our duty to keep moving forward.
It is, yeah. And everything is a struggle when you think about it. And I think life's all about just choosing your struggle and figuring out like the struggle that you enjoy or you're willing to go through.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Choose your struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to struggle because that's where the growth is made.
So, what pain do you enjoy having?
What pain do I enjoy having? I don't think I enjoy pain, period.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody enjoys pain, but I do enjoy the fruits of pain, the growth that comes afterwards. I enjoy the pain of having hard conversations. I'm learning to enjoy that pain. You know, I'm reframing having hard, difficult conversations with people in my mind. I'm currently reframing it because I've been having more conversations with people on levels below the surface, and they are typically, almost always, leading to positive outcomes, which is, I'm enjoying that pain, right? It is uncomfortable at first to maybe address a concern or address a situation with somebody, but the payoff at the end of the tunnel is always good, I've found from my personal experience. And that's a pain that I'm enjoying, is the pain of having uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah. And I guess that's something where it's like, even though they're hard, like it's hard to have an uncomfortable conversation, when you think about it in a different way, like, or, yeah, like, they become easier once you change the way you think about them. Like, once you adopt the belief that a hard conversation really makes things easier in the long run, and it's beneficial for both of you,
Yes.
then they're going to be much easier to have.
Yeah.
Because you don't see them, like, you don't associate them with the feeling of being uncomfortable in the moment. You start to associate them with making things better in the long term.
You nailed it. That's exactly the premise. Exactly. And that goes for majority of things in your life. Something as simple as going to the gym, right? There is a temporary pain of, putting your muscle through a certain degree of strain. But the payoff is you get muscular growth, right? It's a very similar concept. Having hard conversations, pain. Afterwards, growth. Simple. It goes for anything. Like anything in your life that is uncomfortable typically leads to growth.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just all about the way that you perceive it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the last question that I'm starting to ask a lot of my guests, I don't think I asked you this last time you were on, but the question is, how do you want to remember yourself when you're on your deathbed, looking back on your life? Like, what do you want to think about yourself?
I want to be proud of myself. I want to know that I always followed my inner moral compass. I would hope that I always stayed true to myself and perpetually pursued my passions and continuously eliminated things that I didn't want in my life. That's what I hope is on my deathbed. I hope that I stayed true to myself, essentially. And that's all encompassing. That takes into account the family that I would likely raise. That takes into account the relationships that I've likely had. And that's all encompassing in the concept of staying true to myself and pursuing what I believe is to be in line with my moral compass. That's the best I could hope for. That's all I care about. If I'm on my deathbed, I just want to know that Ty, over the many span of his life, has stayed true to himself. And yeah, it's fairly simple, I think. I don't ask much of myself, other than just don't do anything that I don't want to do. For the most part, like, stay aligned with my inner self.
For sure, and it's really just authenticity. Like, going back to what you were saying before,
Yeah.
It's like peeling back that filter.
Yes. Living an authentic life. Yeah, absolutely. Living an authentic life. And that could take holding in any which way. however I perceive being authentic is how I want to live. It could be a plethora of things, and I'm gonna do it because I can't not. Like, I'm at the point where it's like I've been living an authentic life thus far, and this is just how I know. Like, this is how I know how to be, and I don't forecast myself straying from this. So that gives me a lot of confidence, and it gives me a lot of hope, and it gives me a lot of joy to think that my future will be bright, because it's the way that you frame it. It will be bright because I will be doing what I want to be doing, and with the people that I want to be with.
Yeah, I love it, man. And I think that is like that's one of your biggest accomplishments, figuring out who you are and being able to peel back the filter that's stopping you from being authentic. I think that one of like the most impressive things that you've done has been finding that authenticity, finding who you truly are, and peeling back the filter. Anyways, Ty, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Another great one. Honestly, man, I like this a lot more than the last one. Like, the last one was good, but this was even better. Like, this was one of my favorite podcasts that I've done. So just want to say a big thank you for coming on and also letting me come to your place.
Of course, dude. Happy to have you. Great conversation per usual, and I love doing this stuff. So next time you're in town, happy to do it again. And yeah, good questions asked for sure. Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah, man. I really appreciate you.
Of course.